Good morning, gardeners. Amy here. Welcome to my garden. Today I want to talk about this little nightmare weed right here. This is called rush skeleton weed or Chondrilla juncea. So this popped up, or at least I noticed it, only a couple of weeks ago. And that's one of the problems with skeleton weed, is it starts with a basal rosette. It doesn't look like anything important. Honestly, it looks a lot like a dandelion to an untrained eye. And being where this is in my yard, I didn't even notice it. The scientific name for this plant is Chondrilla juncea. Various common names include rush skeleton weed, gum succory, devil's grass, and naked weed. Now, this is not to be confused with Lygodesmia juncea, the rush skeleton plant, which is similar in its branching structure, but it is shorter, usually has many branches, has a pink to lavender flower, and is native to North America. Both of these plants are in the family Asteraceae. Chondrilla juncea, or skeleton weed, as I'm going to refer to it, is native to Europe, Asia, and North Africa, but it is known throughout most temperate regions of the world as an introduced species, which is usually considered invasive or a noxious weed. It is a thin, spindly plant which reaches about 1 meter in height. It starts from a basal rosette of leaves and then bolts, usually with a single flowering stem per rosette that branches extensively. Stem bases have coarse, downward pointing brown hairs, but stems above that point are hairless. Stems have few leaves, but are highly branched and often form weedy thickets. Basal leaves on the rosette are lobed, with these lobes pointing back toward the leaf base. Leaves on the branching stems are few, narrow, and may have entire or smooth edges. It produces small dandelion-like flowers with rectangular yellow ray florets, which is the botanical name for petals. Flowers are yellow, about a ½ inch in diameter, and usually borne singly or in clusters. The fruit is an achene, about 3 to 4 millimeters long, topped with a white pappus, which is the white fluff that allows the seeds to float in the wind for wide dispersal. It reproduces by seed, but also by cloning itself at the root. Tilling of soil and chopping up plants actually help this species disperse by breaking up and redistributing root parts. Its long, slender taproot can grow up to 7 feet deep. Plants will exude a latex sap when injured. And for farmers, this is a nightmare weed. It mixes with wheat, it reduces yields, it's absolutely terrible to deal with. So if you're a farmer, my sympathies go out to you. If you're just a regular gardener like me, it is possible to dig it out mechanically, but if you have acreage, not likely. This is one where you're going to have to spray it, which is its own challenge because sprays don't really work on it once it bolts. Like I said, it starts with a basal rosette, just a few leaves at the face. At that point, it is susceptible to sprays, but once it grows like this, not really. Most mechanical means are ineffective because this has a taproot that goes to China. It is very hard to dig out. Mowing is completely ineffective. And tilling will just make the problem worse because all of that root, if it's broken up in pieces, you'll get many, many new plants. Terrible, absolutely awful weed. This plant is considered a very troublesome weed in many areas and is especially problematic in wheat fields where it has been blamed for reducing yields by as much as 80%. It easily invades fields, clogs harvesting machines, and successfully outcompetes with other plants for water. Many landowners become increasingly frustrated in attempting to control this noxious weed. Herbicides seem to have little impact on the weed after it bolts, but that is often when it is first found. The best control strategy is preventing an invasion before it takes hold and then eradicating small patches as soon as they appear. Do not till or cultivate the patches of rush skeleton weed since root fragments will develop into new plants and spread the infestation. Follow an integrated approach, which means do not just rely on one method of control. You're going to need to try different methods of control at the same time in order to successfully eradicate this plant. Cultural controls are things like healthy competitive vegetation, which helps reduce open spaces, which lessens the chance for invasion to begin in the first place. Try planting competitive legumes such as alfalfa. For very small infestations, diligent hand pulling 2 or 3 times a year for 6 to 10 years can be helpful. Persistence and vigilance are the keys to preventing infestation. On the plus side, there are at least three biocontrols that have been released against this plant. There might be 4. And mine actually has one of them. It has rust right here. So that's awesome. The biocontrols are not going to kill the plant. They are just going to reduce its seed production and slow down its spread. So at least that's something, at least. It's definitely better than nothing. There are several biocontrol options, so I will touch on each of those. Release biocontrol insects on parcels larger than 1 acre and redistribute biocontrols as needed. An insect called skeletonweed gall midge, an arachnid called skeletonweed gall mite, and a fungus called skeletonweed rust. These all show potential for reducing skeletonweed populations by reducing its seed production. The skeletonweed root moth was also approved for release in Idaho in 2002. Adults emerge from exit tubes extending from the plant's roots in May and June. Females are capable of producing up to 300 eggs, laying them in the rosette crown or in the soil. For more information, go to the Idaho Department of Agriculture's website. Another good biocontrol option for rush skeletonweed is actually sheep and goats. Rush skeletonweed is good forage for sheep and goats because it is palatable and nutritious in the rosette and early bolting stages. Continuous grazing in the spring and summer will keep it in the rosette stage, but it will quickly flower if grazing is discontinued. Continuous grazing of larger populations is a good strategy to prevent flowering and seed production and thus restrict spread to distant sites along wind currents. Many populations throughout the Intermountain West are small and therefore prescribed grazing as a control may not be practical. However, prescribed grazing is recommended as a preventative management by maintaining a competitive pasture or rangeland plant community. Chemical controls. Apply herbicide in the spring, before or when the plant bolts. Spray rosettes again in the fall after the first frost when the plant is moving nutrients down to its roots to survive the winter. Use a good MSO surfactant with your spray. MSO means methylated seed oil. The weed has a waxy plant surface with few leaves to absorb the herbicides. The use of an MSO surfactant will improve herbicide effectiveness. Check with your local weed control board for the best chemicals for your area and your situation. Broadcast applications yield the best results. Always read the label instructions before applying. Check your state and your county to see if it is listed as noxious in your area. It is listed as noxious in mine, so by law I have to remove this weed as soon as I see it. I highly recommend you do the same. This plant does have some practical uses for humans. In its native range, in its native habitat, it is actually used in culinary dishes. However, that's not worth growing it on purpose. Please do control this plant. So what I want to cover right now is how to attempt to dig this out. Now again, it has a very, very deep taproot, and if you don't get the whole thing, it'll be back. I have one in an inconvenient place in my backyard that I have been digging every year for years, and I can't get the whole taproot because of where it is. So it just keeps coming back, and I keep digging it. Such is life. So let's get started. So now I have like 6 inches at least of mulch right here. Now this is coming up through over 6 inches of wood chips, which is enough to smother normal weeds. This had a whole bunch of grass and other weedy things. It had dandelions, it had prickly lettuce, and it had smooth scouring rush, which is coming up in the thinner places. But over here, the only thing that's managed to get through is the skeletonweed. This plant is a tenacious bastard. This plant is a tenacious pain in the neck, and this is just another example of why. So let's get started. First, I have to pull my wood chips back. So I'm going to start several inches away from the plant so I have room for wood. I just want to show how well these wood chips are working. There was no dirt visible when I spread these let fall. It was all weed grass and other weeds. And this is dirt now, straight up dirt. All of the other weeds are completely dead and gone. I do have a full video on wood chips and other mulches. I highly recommend checking that one out. I'll link it up here at the top and in the description below. So I need enough room to dig and enough room to set the soil that I pull up. The other thing I absolutely hate about this plant is these stupid spines at the base of the stems. I'm not sure if they're called spines, prickles, or trichomes. Doesn't matter, they're a pain in the neck. And for a gardener like me that hates wearing gloves, this prevents me from just grabbing it and pulling it. But that's probably better because I wouldn't be able to get the whole root that way anyway. Hey, it's going that way now. I have to move my hole over a little bit. It's going sideways. Of course it is. I was hoping to not have to move the entire pile of wood chips today. I got almost all of it. There's a little bit more on this end that might grow back. Yep, and that is gone. All right, well, fine. This specimen right here, I don't know if you can see it through the fence, but it's right here. This one I've been trying to dig out for years, but because of where it is, the root goes between the fence and the steps here, the concrete steps, and it's completely surrounded by other plants that I don't really want to dig up. I would have to excavate this whole area in order to get this gone. So about once or twice a year, I just come out here with a shovel and pop out as much of the root as I can. And it's smaller than it usually is most years. So it seems to be helping, but it's definitely not an effective means of control. But we're going to try one more time. Shovel straight up. Loosening the soil. Okay, built a pot. Oh, I got more than I did last year. This is last year's root, and it regrew one more shoot. Okay. I think there's even a thicker one even below this, because last year, if I remember right, somebody else pulled it up, and they did not get much of the root. So this would be last year's root. There's a thicker one below this that I never do manage to get, and that's what goes over and right next to the concrete. Thanks for watching, everybody. If you enjoyed this video and you learned something new, make sure to tell me by hitting the like button. If you have any thoughts, questions, or comments, leave them in the comments down below. And if you haven't already done so, please subscribe so you get more gardening content in your video feed every week. Thanks again for watching, guys. I'll see you in the garden.